everyone. Welcome to the Light Haven podcast. My name is Bianca, energy healer and astrology enthusiast.
And I'm Ruth, mystery student towards the awakening of consciousness.
We've come together to create a safe space where we talk about all things to do with spirituality, mysticism, mind and wellness, and working with energy. Today we wanted to have a chat about energy. It's a frequently referred to topic. You will hear people say things like good vibes and good energy, high vibration. We wanted to look at the fundamental questions such as what is it, how does it relate to us, and how we can work with it to our advantage.
Yeah, energy is such a hot topic these days. You hear a lot of people talking about it, and I feel that it's come into our modern culture. Even at work, sometimes we joke, the universe is speaking to me, or the universe heard me, or I've got good energy, I'm going to make this sale, things like that. So it's definitely a term, or it's a word that is bandied around in our vocabulary.
Yeah.
But it would be good to unpack it. What exactly even is energy?
Well, Albert Einstein once said everything in life is vibration. If you think about it, all energy operates on different vibrational frequencies, all interconnected with each other. And scientifically, it is known that atoms are held together by energy and are in fact made of energy. Quantum physics has proven that matter on a subatomic level exists as energy. And energy is also detectable by every living thing. This explains why you can feel someone standing behind you before you even turn around. It's that feeling, that feeling is actually their energetic vibration coming into contact with yours. And this explains why you have the ability to be affected by the people you are in the presence of. And actually, when I did my Reiki training, my Reiki master teacher shared this example of a study that was conducted on different individuals, and it was a study of their auras. And so if you imagine two people each having their own aura frequency that was detectable somehow, I'm not sure, but it was detectable, and all you could see was their auras on the screen, and you could see them come together, and it was just, you would imagine someone on the sidewalk seeing someone else that they knew and say, hey, and they exchange like, good morning, how are you? Great, the weather is great. So it was just that innocent interaction, and all the while you're looking at their auras and they're combined. Now, when they left and carried on their own way, there was always one aura that left that was much bigger than the other when they separated. So it was this idea of two equal-sized auras coming together, and then when they parted ways, one aura was much bigger than the other, and it was like that person's energy had been filled, and one energy was kind of depleted in a way. Like, do you understand what
I understand what you're saying, but I'm terribly wigged out to hear that. It's like someone's an energy vampire.
Yes, there's the energy takers and the energy givers, but it's a very natural phenomenon that happens without us even being conscious of it. And that explains sometimes why people will leave a conversation feeling absolutely drained. Like they left feeling less energy than what they had before they entered the conversation or the interaction with the other person. So if you leave a conversation feeling revitalized and all energized, then you are probably yeah.
I wonder if it could be equal, though, with people who are very healed and wholesome, and it's a mutually beneficial exchange.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I was just surprised at that study that, first of all, we could detect people's auras, and then to figure out that there were some auras that were left more energized than others. So yeah,
I'm thinking of boundaries.
Yeah, good boundaries. Protect my energy. No, but there must be something more to this. Have you heard of any theories that explain this further?
Yeah, have you heard of the kosha layers?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
So Max Heindel was a Danish-American Christian occultist, which sounds very mysterious. He was also an astrologer and a mystic, so basically my kind of guy. He unpacked the layers of the energetic aspects to us into 7 layers. And I think the way he structured it is interesting because it can relate to the kosha layers as well. So the first layer he refers to is the physical body, which is the part that we think is all that we are. In yoga, they call it the Sthula Surya, and in the kosha layers, it's called the Annamaya kosha in the kosha system. And that's something that we've studied since we were kids. We're all familiar with it. Then the next layer is the vital body. And sometimes it's referred to as the seat of organic life. It's also called the energy body or the Linga Surya in yoga. And in the kosha system, it's the pranayama kosha. So you can think of it like the energy system for the body. It's also considered the densest of the energy systems, so it's the one that will be easiest for us to detect because it's quite close to home. And one of my favorite things about it is that it has what are called the nadis. And there are lots of nadis, but I think the most commonly referred to ones are the Ida and Pingala and the Sushumna. Have you heard of those?
No, I haven't heard of those.
Oh, we'll have to shelve that one for another conversation because they're very interesting. And it's also said that in the vital body, that's where your chakras live. And that vital body is the thing that creates your aura, interestingly. Then the next layer is the astral body. It's also called the desire body. And that's your energy system for your emotional experience, also called the Manomaya kosha. Some people who astral project claim to have seen this, and they say that in the astral realm, it looks just like a real body, except it's on the astral plane, which is another plane that sits directly on top of this one. Maybe for a lot of people, that just seems really far-fetched. But as someone who has experimented with astral travel, I can say that I'm convinced that it is a real body. It is a real part of us or an aspect of us. And it's also said to be connected to our emotions. And again, maybe the lines are a little bit blurred because you have all these different systems. So in some systems, they might say, the vital body is where your chakras are. In other systems, they might disagree and say, no, your chakras are in your astral body. So there's no one consensus because it's such a subtle field of exploration that we're not quite sure. But I guess that's quite a granular detail. Doesn't matter too much. But the interesting thing is that it's said that when we go to sleep at night, we use our astral body a lot. Maybe some people every night. But because their consciousness is asleep, either they're puttering around somewhere, flopping around, not really doing much because they're not conscious, or they do a whole bunch of things and they can't remember. So I find, for me, that's very fascinating because I like the idea that if I can bring more of my consciousness online, then I would start to be able to have lucid dreams or experiment on the astral plane properly.
Yeah, because I think it's believed that all of us in some way do this without being conscious or without knowing that we do this, that our astral body is around traveling far and wide, or even just pottering around the house, but we don't realize it because we're asleep and we've turned our consciousness off, so we don't realize, but it's happening.
That's right. And when you astral project, you can be quite fearful and think that you won't be able to get back into your body. But the funny thing is that all you're doing is trying to bring your consciousness online, doing what you do anyway. So if you don't bring your consciousness there, your astral body is still projecting, going places anyway, just you don't know about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so then we move towards what's called the concrete mind or the mental body. And in Buddhism, they might just call it mind, but it has a much broader meaning than my mind, where I'm thinking and I'm having chattering thoughts. In the kosha layers, it's Vijnana Namaya kosha, or the wisdom body. And that's the part of you that has a lot of thoughts. And for me, this is probably one of the most interesting bodies because it's full of conflict. So there's a ton of different ideas in there. And these ideas, or this chatter, they behave as if they're separate individuals inside of you. A lot of people might say, no, I'm one person. But when you start to look deep, then you'll notice your internal conflict. And you can really notice this when you observe someone who is indecisive. If they were of a singular, unified mind, they couldn't possibly be indecisive. So that's where you see the fragmented nature of the psyche coming into play. And a classic example of this would be when someone tries to go on a diet and they say, that's it, for the next 3 weeks, I won't eat any sugar. And the third day, they're munching on a donut, completely not conscious of what they're doing. And someone goes, hey, weren't you going to diet? And they go, oh, yeah, no, it's too hard. So which one of them were you talking to? It's almost like Jekyll and Hyde. But when you start to look at the mental body, that's when you can start to address it and work on it. First, you've got to see what's going on there. And I think that even if you didn't subscribe to this whole system, that would be a layer to yourself to take very seriously, because you're in the driver's seat and it's your job to be aware of what's going on internally so you can take back your power, take back your control. So that one's really interesting. Then we move on to the fifth body, which is also referred to as the causal body or the body of conscious will. So the part of you that should be in the driver's seat. And they say this is your true decision maker when it's empowered, when it's conscious, and when it's strong. And it's also the part of you that is very weak if you're completely swayed by everything around you. So swayed by what your mom or your sister said, that kind of person that just goes, oh, but they told me I should do this and they told me I should do that. So I think I'm just going to do what my colleague said, or what my husband said, what my partner said. Or they think that it's their own decision, but they only reach that conclusion after talking to 10 other people. So this is an important part of yourself to take note of. Are you really in conscious control of yourself? Or are you just influenced by everyone and everything around you, or the conditioning that you were subjected to over time growing up. If this part of you is weak, everything you do will be really mechanical. So if you tried to remember what you did in a day, you won't even know what you did, where you went, and who you spoke with, because you were completely on autopilot. So when you were driving, when you were at work, you were just doing all your emails, and then you go home and go, whew, that was a long day. What did I actually do? Oh, I can't remember. Okay, let me watch some TV. So you're completely offline and the causal body is just snoring. So when we start to wake this part of ourselves up, that's where we can examine bad habits. So for example, if you have always lost your patience with someone, so there's a pattern there, but you're asleep, so you don't know about that pattern. The next time they do something that really bothers you, you're going to lose your cool again, and you're going to repeat that same pattern. So the way that you can strengthen your conscious will is by daily reflection and diving deep into the root causes of your actions. This part of yourself is also said to be related to karma and beliefs. So it's where, you know how we talked about self-limiting beliefs?
Yeah.
Like the poverty mindset, or believing that you don't deserve wealth or abundance. It's said that the causal body is the home of where those limiting factors sit. So when people think, I'm not thin enough, or I always feel anxious when talking to new people, or I don't relate to that group of people, I'm not funny, I can't tell good jokes, I'm not pretty enough, whatever the limiting belief is, that's where it's hiding. And there are I think a lot of people try to work on those defects, but it's to no avail. They try lots of different techniques. So the way to approach it when you know that those problems are inside your causal body is that you have to work on the subconscious rather than on the surface level. You know, like you can set goals and make plans and then you just can't do it because you haven't changed your subconscious. So you'll need things like mirror work, affirmations, neuro-linguistic programming, and deep meditation that includes reflection to understand the root causes.
Yeah, I just with that one, there's something that I was thinking of, it just came to my mind, is it sounds like it's something to do with like your conditioned mind, and that you to become unconditioned, there are certain things that you can do, such as that's why some people reach for psychedelics or ayahuasca, because it alters their state of mind and they become connected to this universal consciousness. And I know we weren't really going to touch on that, but it just reminded me of the benefits of what I've learned about universal consciousness, is the people who seek to find themselves through these experiences are connecting with this universal oneness, because it's the only way that they can detach from their conditioned mind, which is telling them all these things, which is getting them into all this trouble and causing them all this pain and trauma and stuff. So to disconnect from that for a little while and be on this universal oneness can help them get past their conditioning and undo some of those self-limiting beliefs that they've ingrained in themselves.
Yeah, that's very true, because sometimes you have to pause those patterns before you can figure out how to create a new pattern. You mentioned psychedelics, and I'm by no means an expert on it, but I've read a little bit about it. And from what I understand is, say, a classic one, psilocybin. This psychedelic puts a pause or a damper on what's referred to as your default mode network, which is all of your standard patterns that you've been running since you were a child. And in that state, your brain is in what's considered a hot state or a malleable state. So it gives you a chance to write new patterns, and then you come back into the pathways.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't necessarily completely do away with the patterns that were there, but you get this chance to try and overlay something different, hopefully run your cars down those new roads and get it locked in. But I've heard there's a lot of promising research where they're looking at therapeutic modalities in a clinical setting where they use psilocybin to help people rewrite those really tough patterns that are so stuck. Yeah. So then we move on to the sixth body, which is the body of consciousness, also called the Anandamaya Kosha, or the bliss body, which sounds amazing. And it is a part of us, which is very interesting because you hear about these Buddhist monks that meditate, and after many years they access this deep internal part of themselves where they're in a state of bliss. So that means that there is a part of us, a part of each individual that we are not aware of because we're so busy and preoccupied. But it's very deep within what you could call either our psychology or our energetic aspect, and it's almost to the root of who we are. And in that place, it's perfect.
Well, I just have one comment. I just wanted to interject there and say that from what I know, it is the most subtle out of all the energy fields that we're talking about. It's the most subtle and the most undetectable because it's so deep within us and so close to the core of who we are.
Yeah, and these monks say that when they go very deep into their practice, they experience this body of consciousness as a flash of bliss, where they feel completely one with what's referred to as the universal consciousness. And so either you can access it through meditation or sometimes certain kinds of ceremonies. I wanted to share an affirmation that I came across.
Sure.
Yeah, because I just love it. And I think maybe someone who's listening who is into this, they might want to say it with us, or they might want to write it down and come back to it. But what we're talking about has a practical aspect, right? We're talking about, a state of bliss. So how can you get there? And I think this affirmation just encapsulates that. So it says, I am one with all things. My life is my purpose. I am made of more than matter. I am both earth and sky, sun and sea, space and light, consciousness. As I breathe in, the universe breathes out. As I breathe out, the universe breathes in. Maybe we didn't have time to sit in a cave for 10 years, but I think that's a teeny glimpse of what that...
That was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Now, the seventh principle is not commonly discussed, but it is part of this framework, so I thought I would include it. It's been referred to as the virginal spark. So it's the most quintessential part of you, and it's your true essence. So in Buddhism, they say this is your true nature, and you're basically perfect. You are pure, you're in a state of bliss, of universal love, joy, you're cheerful, you're pure, you're compassionate, you're wonderful. but you don't know it. And the reason you don't know it is because you are stuck in conditioning that creates suffering in your mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, so all of these structures and ideas are created by people who have grasped something of this nature and wanted to share a path for the rest of us to find this way back to who we truly are. In summary, I think we have a very energetic understanding of the human creature or experience. And to some people, it might sound fantastical or complicated, but I think it doesn't have to be a lofty idea or inaccessible. It could be approached as a new way to gain a handle of the more subtle parts of yourself that maybe you haven't been in touch with previously. My philosophy is to take everything with a grain of salt, equally to stay open, curious, and find out what there is to learn in everything. I think that makes life so much more interesting, and it's enriching.
Oh yeah, totally. 100%. With those different energetic bodies that you were just mentioning about, my take on that is, so first of all, we know we have a physical body. That's for sure. No one's going to debate us on that. Then we have these other subtle energetic bodies. And I know that in each culture, it's described a little differently, but the notion is still the same thing. And so these subtle energetic bodies connects our consciousness in a way to our physical body. So I think it's important, or at least the takeaway for me in what you've just mentioned or shared with us, is that it's important to understand our whole system, not just our physical, but all these energetic layers that are going on that complete us. And we know that other cultures have this understanding. We see it in Ayurveda medicine, Chinese medicine, Tibetan medicine. So it's clear they understand that when we approach healing, we're not just treating the physical symptoms, but we're treating the different layers as well. I liken these fields of energy that we have, it's like a two-way communication system. So this means everything we do, everything that we think, everything that we feel informs our mental, emotional, and physical state through this biofield, I would say. This leads me into the next part of the conversation. We talk about how energy can affect us, and I go into a bit more detail about what it means to do work on an energetic level. We can look to see how it affects us on a physical or biological level. Our cells have receptors that act like antennas. These antennas let cells receive their identity externally, and they are what allows us to communicate on a spiritual level. Our DNA plays a role in energy processing and transmission. It's the idea that low vibrational frequencies of fear and anger connects to only a few DNA areas, whereas high vibrational frequencies will activate many DNA points. The word emotions broken down is emotion, meaning energy in motion. And there's an understanding that the lower vibrational frequencies make us feel guilt, shame, fear. The higher vibrational frequencies bring feelings of courage, love, peace, and at the top of them all, enlightenment. High vibrational frequency healing properties is one where we can feel relaxed in the presence of positive emotions, which then puts us into a healing state. So essentially, this means our minds have the ability to influence our health because our thoughts and feelings control the flow of energy, which is picked up by the antennas of the cell membranes and activates the healing process.
Wow. I never thought of it like that, especially the part that hit me was where your DNA is fully activated by higher frequencies. It makes me think that we were designed for so much more than what we've fallen into these days. And I think that's a game-changing way of looking at our experience, because if these frequencies are essentially things like if we are proud and hateful, then we are not fully activated, whereas if we are in compassion and love and purity, then we are in a higher aspect of ourselves.
That's exactly right.
Means we have to take responsibility for how we're responding to the world and how we're managing our internal interpretation of it. I think we've heard a lot about this because I remember many years ago, Bruce Lipton was a scientist that started to popularize these ideas. There are a few of his well-known books. There was The Biology of Belief in 2005. Then 5 years later, he published Spontaneous Evolution, Our Positive Future and a Way to Get There from Here. Then in 2013, there was The Honeymoon Effect. 2015, there was The Biology of Belief. And I even had the privilege of listening to Bruce Lipton at the Spirit Fest last year.
Oh, was he there?
Yeah, he was. Oh, I lie. It wasn't last year. It was this year in March, and I went up there with my son. He was one of the guest speakers. And I think it was fascinating because we have a scientist who is at the forefront of this new understanding. And maybe mainstream science has a long way to go to catch up, but you do have these prominent voices who are just as educated and qualified, and they're within their right to speak up about what they've uncovered, that energy is real, and how we work with energy in ourselves impacts on our experience, our health, and our world around us. So it's a great theory with a practical aspect to it. Have you tried actually putting it into practice?
Yeah, so I want to say that I have experienced the healing effects of being, say, in a state of calmness. And I don't think I knew exactly what I was doing at the time. But one of the first personal experiences with mind over matter, it was when I had my daughter. She's my second. My first was quite a traumatic experience, going through my first labor and delivery of my son. And it left me feeling almost traumatized afterwards, thinking, wow, I never want to go through that again. And when I got pregnant with my second so closely after having my first, Cole he had only turned one a few months after I found out I was pregnant again. And so what the traumatic experience was for me, for my first, was that my tailbone broke when I was delivering him, like pushing him out. And I felt it click as his head was coming out of me. I realized later that it was my tailbone, and for months, I would say almost a year after his birth, I was in so much pain. It hurt to stand up. It hurt while I laid down in bed trying to move side to side. And because he was my first, I thought that was completely normal until I spoke with one of my friends. She had baby number 5, and I visited her 9 months after I had Cole, and I was complaining to her about my back and how sore it was, and she said that it's not normal, you have to go get it checked out. And lo and behold, I found out that it was my tailbone, and the only answer for that was to just let my body heal.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I can't imagine how that would have felt. But I had that question on the tip of my tongue. Wait, did you know? Like, did they do anything? Or
no,
you went
because
the whole time?
I just kept quiet, and I just thought, well, having a baby is painful, and this is just the normal process that we go through, and I just have to suck it up, and get on with it. And so I was in so much pain. And then I found out that it was my tailbone, and that there was nothing I could do about it other than to just let it heal on its own. When I found out that I was pregnant with baby number 2, I was fearful because I thought, I don't want this to happen to me again. And I went to the physio and I said to her, look, I'm pregnant. My tailbone broke the first time I had a baby, and he's only just turned 1, so it's still very fresh. My body is still very fragile, I would say. And I have 8 months, because by then right? You're already 1 month pregnant by the time you realize you're pregnant. So I've got 8 months or so to prep myself for this delivery. And she said, okay, you can do it. Your body is capable. And in my mind, I didn't feel like it was capable. I just thought, this is impossible. If it took me this long to kind of feel like I was healed, but not quite, and now I've only got 8 months left to get myself ready, I was not sure about how this was going to go, to be honest. But she gave me some good advice, some practical advice on just a few tips to try at home. But what I really tried to do was I went away and I researched, and I found hypnobirthing. And I was like, this sounds like something I could try. And so I went along to the sessions, and it was very much like visualize your ideal labor and how it's going to go, and here's a CD. Okay, so that was like 10 years ago, so CDs were still a thing. And like, here's a CD with affirmations on it. Listen to this before you go to bed every night. And I did it. I was still kind of doubtful, but I was just going along with it, thinking, I'm just going to do it because I have nothing else to try. This is all I have. When I went into labor with Penny, it went exactly how I had visualized it.
No.
Yeah. I had always imagined that I was going to be in labor like 4 hours, and it was going to be nighttime, and and it all happened like 4 hours, nighttime. I did the breathing techniques that we were taught. I tried to remain as calm as possible, breathed through everything, and just stayed very zen. She came out so quickly. I felt no pain at all. Like, a lot of pressure. I could feel the contractions, but it just felt like pressure. It didn't feel painful or uncomfortable at all. And I couldn't believe it. When she came out, and I was like, wow, it's done? Really? It wasn't even sore, like, how you can feel, and I've spoken with other mothers about this, there's that ring of fire.
I know, I've only had one. It was definitely not fun. Yes, I know they say birthing is beautiful, but it's a very intense ordeal, especially the first one. Yeah. So I felt the ring of fire with Cole. He had a big head, so the ring of fire is basically when the crown is when his head is like literally just coming out. Yes,
this is very like
not fun.
Gory. But with Penny, none of that, nothing at all. It was just So easy. Just breathed and stayed relaxed through the whole thing, did not resist, trusted my body was going to do what it needed to do to get the job done. And it happened. I wasn't even expecting for it to not be painful. That was just a benefit, an added bonus to it all. The whole point for me was to overcome this fear that I had from my first experience and not allow that to dictate how my second experience was going to go, and to try all that I can mentally, physically, emotionally to get through this the least harmful way as possible. I hold that story dear to me because if you speak with other mothers about the fact that there was no pain, it almost becomes disbelief in a way. Like, what?
They might even be offended.
Like, how can that be?
Yes.
And I have no idea how to explain it other than to say it's possible.
Yeah, wow. And good on those experts for recommending you some top-notch resources as well. I don't even know if they would do that today. Has the science gone somewhere else? But I think that's a great testament to the power of everything that we're talking about here, that
exactly.
It really works. But a lot of people might not think that.
Yeah, exactly. I am aware that there's a stigma around energy healing because it's hard to prove medically some of these phenomenons that occur, but it's very real. In biofield science, which is the study of fields of energy and information that guide our health, we can study fields of energy and information that are measurable. For example, scientists can measure the EEG, aka studying brainwaves. They are studying the electromagnetic potentials that's coming off the body through our organs. As we do this, it tells us something of our state of health. But it is very difficult to be taken seriously, this whole talk of energy and how it can affect you, because these subtle energies are undetectable, right?
So far, exactly.
But we know that in different cultures, they have known these, especially in Eastern cultures, they've known about this for centuries. My thinking is, because we've been indoctrinated with what science and medicine have dictated, that we don't leave room for any other reason to exist, or alternatively we think if it isn't proven then it can't be real. We have come a long way, I would say. If you go back only 2 or 3 generations, science came out proving that mind has an effect on your emotions and our immune system. Something so basic now, but when our grandparents were growing up, was considered a completely new and groundbreaking discovery to the human body and its interconnectedness. There is a place for science-backed medicine, but the two aren't mutually exclusive. You can have a holistic mindset while still taking your daily vitamins and doing all the necessary things to take care of your physical body.
I agree with that. Who wouldn't want to do everything they can that they believe helps them? Because we're not saying don't go to the doctor.
Exactly.
Or don't use all of the tools available. But what if you could have more tools?
Mm-hmm.
And for those who are really skeptical, maybe there's the placebo effect, maybe there's a positive mindset effect. And for those who want to take it further, yes, I believe there's an energetic aspect. And you mentioned other cultures and how they have, for many years, intuitively known about and understood the energetic aspect to the universe and how it's connected to our daily life. I spent 17 years in China, and over there they have a whole philosophy and approach to health that is holistic. They do use Western medicine, but they by no means have let go of those historical practices that they've always benefited from. So acupuncture, Chinese medicine, and guess what? Energy in foods.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so what I loved was that even though they have scientific advancements and they're all about the science and research, they still widely stand by these ideas in society at large. Acupuncture, we know about that in New Zealand. You can claim ACC for acupuncture. And for those who are not in New Zealand, ACC is our accident compensation cover.
Yeah.
So people can, if they need to access a kind of treatment that can help them with something more chronic or ongoing, something to do with pain, then there is this healing method for them. It's based on stimulating what are called meridians, which are 361 different points on the body where the special acupuncturists know that that's where you can insert a very thin needle and you can manipulate the energy at that pinpoint along its pathway. But energy in food types is so widespread. My grandma was Chinese, so I heard about this all the time. And we would get told off for eating junk food, but they wouldn't say, that's junk food. There were certain food groups. And for me, with my Western upbringing, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't work out what was considered to have heat energy or cooling energy. But you just went with it. Okay, that's what she said. So chocolate, chips, and fried foods were all said to contain heat energy. And you think, okay, so heat means junk food. But no, because lychees have heat energy. So it's definitely energetic. It's not just saying that junk food has one kind of energy. And when you have excess heat energy in your energetic systems, the first sign is a sore throat. And people in Hong Kong swear by this. If they have a lot of chocolate, they can easily get a sore throat. So to combat heat, you would need to introduce foods that have cooling energy. And that would be things like salads. You would also reduce your additives and eliminate spices like chili and garlic and onion because those have heat in them. But there's not just hot and cold, there's also damp and dry. So,
Wow.
yeah, damp energy foods would be foods containing dairy, gluten, but also sugary fruits like pineapple, watermelon, and then you also have eggs and mushrooms. And there are huge long lists you can find. But if you have too much damp energy, you will start to feel waterlogged. So think like swollen hands and feet or swollen calves.
Like inflammation.
Yeah. You know when you're pregnant and they say you're really swollen or your skin is really swollen and maybe your rings start to not fit?
Yeah. Your body holds on to the water. It retains a lot of the water.
Yeah, so that feeling, except you're not pregnant and you feel like that, or you feel really sluggish. So when you feel that, then you need to combat that with introducing dryness. Dry foods would include nuts and seeds, beans and lentils, some raw foods, but not others, so you got to ask an expert, and even green tea or cinnamon. It seems like a very in-depth discipline, but a lot of people who have chronic illnesses that have not been successful with Western medicine, they've been able to find real results in traditional Chinese medicine. I think it's a beautiful system and it requires specialist discipline. The people who follow it claim to have received benefits from it since ancient times. There's a lot of wisdom to these ideas from our past, and modern society has become forgetful, maybe even arrogant, to have thrown away so much of our past that was good and helpful. I think this is something that the Chinese will not be throwing away anytime soon. And they're going to continue to teach and offer these healing methods which have their root in energetic theory.
Yeah, I had no idea about these energetic foods, but it makes complete sense. I like to think that it might be oversimplified, but because I'm no naturopath, but knowing what I know about eating leafy greens and beans and lentils and all these good foods for your body, and having a balance of a good balance of all the different food groups. And I think to myself, the Chinese, hearing you talk about these different elemental food groups, they seem to have a real in-depth knowledge that comes from ancient times, but we in the Western world are only just discovering what it means to have a balanced diet. I
think we still don't know. We
can't
do it.
Yeah.
I would say that Chinese energetic diet, to me, it fascinates me because it gets even more complex and granular than that. It's not just the food groups. It's also herbs as well. The Chinese medicine practitioner would tell someone, you can't eat beans, or you need to start boiling your vegetables because you need more heat energy. And right now for you, you shouldn't be eating salads. So it takes an expert to be able to guide them in that way. But that's a matter for Chinese medicine practitioners, which I am not. Maybe the average Joe wants to have something that they can do that will allow them to raise their vibration. Maybe they're not going to go to a Chinese medicine practitioner. What is something that someone can do in their daily life?
Yeah, good question. I think physically, just the everyday things that we've been taught, like exercise, daily exercise, taking care of your diet, getting a lot of sunlight, staying hydrated, getting enough sleep at night, and to add to that, actually have a regular sleep routine. It's very important. And I think the other aspects that we shouldn't leave out is emotionally making sure that we are surrounding ourselves with uplifting, positive people, mentally watching what content we're consuming, having a daily meditation practice. I know we've talked about that in previous episodes.
All very good things for well-being. Do you know Dolores Cannon?
I've never heard of her.
Okay, hopefully I've remembered her name correctly. I remember watching a little video of her talking about vibrations. She talks a lot about energy and reincarnation and all the things that we're interested in as well. I believe she is no longer with us, but she's been touted as a great energetic commentator with a lot of knowledge. And she comments on people who have bad energy.
Really?
Yes. So this little clip that I watched said something to the effect of, you know those people where when they come into your vicinity, you can feel them bringing you down? They're what we would call a negative Nancy, just a downer, or a full-on energy vampire. So that description where you said two people's auras coming together and one person leaving away with a bigger aura, I think it would be...
That's a classic example.
Yeah, it would be hugely amplified. So one person's aura would be so shrunken, they would just be shrunken to a pea or something.
Yeah.
Her advice is, those people, run, get away. Don't stand near them because they are going to steal your joy.
Yeah.
And that person could be a family member. It could be a partner that's no good for you. It could be a workplace, like a toxic office environment. So I think that is a number one key for people. If you're finding yourself in certain situations or around certain people where they're bringing you down, just notice what's happening. Notice how you feel after that interaction, after you've been to that space, or after you've been to that office, if that's where you work, after you've spoken with that person. And if you think that it's no good for you, set those boundaries and protect your energy.
Absolutely. I also feel like sometimes when you find yourself in these situations, it's very unspoken. Like you don't even have to come out right and say, you are sucking the energy out of me, I am going to leave. Like it's just something unspoken that you recognize within yourself, how you're feeling, and you do what you can to just casually exit.
Stop talking to them. Ignore their texts.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that easy for, say, to do that with loved ones or, a partner or something, but definitely in the workplace, you can limit the amount of access limit the amount of interactions you have with certain people. Just, it goes without saying. You don't even need to say it to them, but it's just, you just do it, and you distance yourself.
Yeah, so that's really important. And of course, the things that we talked about, affirmations, good exercise, and I would say monitoring your mood as well.
Yeah, that's such a good, sometimes we're just on autopilot and we don't think to check in with ourselves and check in to see how we're actually doing on a daily basis. We just get stuck into a routine, and next thing you know, it's nighttime and you realize you haven't had a chance to really think about how you're feeling or anything like that.
Yeah, so it's being aware. That's when you can tap into how you are managing the energy that you're carrying, because that's what you project out to the world, and that's what you're going to get back. So if you're projecting low confidence, people won't like me, they won't promote me, they won't hire me, they won't give me the opportunity, that's what you will get back. So just being mindful, and it's not something that's simply fixed. Those are things that need to be delved into deeper, but it starts with being aware.
Exactly. I think this is a good starting place for people to start raising their vibration. We see their physical, mental, and emotional aspects to focus on. I would suggest to try and pick one or two that resonate with you and aim to build on that as you create a routine for yourself. And to round out everything that we've discussed, firstly, everything that exists is energy operating at different vibrational frequencies. Secondly, we have different invisible layers, not just our physical layer. And thirdly, the vibrational frequencies resonate with us for better or for worse. And lastly, we have the ability to heal by raising our vibration. So this is really positive because people can have something to take away that they can start implementing from here. So thank you to all our listeners for joining us. Maybe some of what we talked about today resonated with you. If it did, please leave a review or reach out to us if you have any questions. We will leave our contact details in the description. We hope you join us on the next episode, and remember, the path to your best reality is in your hands to create when you become conscious.